Screen for go, they're racing. He says go, he says ta-da, and Tiger Tara roars away from them on the home turn. Here comes another big boil over. Equine athleticism at its best. The king is in the castle once more. This is in one race, the rest are almost in another postcode. She is a star with a capital S. It's going to be a triple treat, a miracle three-peat. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed history here at Menangle. What about that? It's getting right up on the sprint lane and it's going to bolt in.
Hello, welcome to episode number 100 of the Harness Racing New South Wales Sprint Lane podcast. This is the Sunday session and my name is Greg Hayes. Great to have your company on the podcast this week. Another piece of the puzzle was put into place at Hobart when Fighter Command booked its spot in the world's richest harness race with a dominant display in the bow tide. Crossed at the start, he came off the inside, he worked to the front before putting his older rivals away. Bred in Tasmania, trained in Victoria, part-owned in WA. Definitely is an Australian story. It'll be interesting to see whether the 3-year-old can compete with the stronger 4-year-olds in a month's time. Closer to home, Will Rixon dominated the Menangle meeting again. This time he chalked up 4 winners and closed the state premiership margin big time as well. Cam Hart looked set to record another big win this year in the premiership, but due to a few factors, including driving less for the Grimson stable, Cam's lead is now back to just 12. Cam's away overseas. He's having a well-earned break. In fact, from all reports, I think he's over at the Hambletonian, which was run in the early hours of Sunday morning, catching the cream of the sport in North America. Will Rixon and Cam have travelled together in the past, but Rixon has decided to stay home this time, and it's worked in his favour with that margin continually narrowing. Speaking of the Hambletonian in the US, no Australia or New Zealand success in the big one, or the Oaks, but it was still a huge meeting for the Australian and New Zealanders. 16 races on the card. Dexter Dunn won 6 of them. Andrew McCarthy drove 2. Brett Pelling, Chris Ryder, they each trained a winner. Great to see the down-under footprint on the US product. Obviously, Todd McCarthy drove at the meeting as well, and it's really good to see the Australians and New Zealanders doing so well in the US. Just wonder whether in time we're going to see more of our young guns head across to try their hand. I've spoken to Jet Turnbull on the podcast in the last 12 months, and he's already spoken about his desire to try his luck in the US at some stage. Young Carter Dalgetty recently arrived over there. Didn't take him long to enjoy some success. So the down under horsemen are obviously very good at their craft and will be for generations to come. So what's on the podcast today? Well, as usual, I'll review the Menangle meeting in the Menangle Express. I'll look at every race and see if I can spot a winner or two for future meetings. And as usual, I'll catch up with a leading player at the meeting. This time, I'm going to speak with Will Rixon. Will's been helping his mum and dad out training a few while Peter recovers from an operation, and I'll have a chat to Will about that on the podcast today. I mentioned it last week. Seeing as it is episode 100, I thought I'd put together a couple of interviews in regards to the future of the feature events and the sport in New South Wales. What a year we have in 2024. The Miracle Mile, the Eureka, and the Interdom. And then you include the Breeders' Challenge finals. It is just a remarkable 12 months at Menangle. The biggest events here in New South Wales. But what's the future? The Eureka came as a 3-year event, and I thought it'd be a good time to catch up with the boss of Harness Racing Australia, Andrew Kelly, and find out what the process will be in the future. When will a decision be made whether the race will remain in New South Wales? The race is obviously funded through the Stallion Levy, and that's a national levy. So could the race move elsewhere in the future? Club Menangle is the venue for all of these big events, and I'm going to chat with the boss of Club Menangle, Bruce Christison, and have a chat to him about the club's outlook and what the club's plans are moving forward. What happens with the Eureka? What happens with the Inter-Dominion? Harness Racing New South Wales obviously plays a significant role in all the future as the governing body, and after today's interviews, I'm going to endeavour to catch up with the Harness Racing New South Wales CEO, Peter Buckman, next week or the week after, and just get an overall perspective of the sport moving forward. Some people in the industry might suggest the topic can be a little bit dry, but I think it's important to look ahead and talk about the plans for the future, especially in regards to the big races. Plenty to talk about. I really hope you enjoy it. It's going to be a little bit longer as a result of the interviews with Andrew Kelly and Bruce Christison. First up, though, let's hear from the man who hit home run after home run at Club Menangle on Saturday night, Will Rixon.
28 won the quarter. First into the straight as they flatten in as Waterboy Jack has a few of these off the bit. Trying hard in second spot. Power Up, Kalara, Samurai and Ideal Marquez. The leader is still Waterboy Jack with about 100 metres left to go. Back to the inside, trying hard as Power Up. Clear of the others, storming home late down the outside, Sheffield Sparky. But Waterboy Jack, there's 4 for Will Rixon.
Well, he's starting to narrow the gap on his good mate Cam Hart in the state premiership. I think that lead of Cam Hart's is down to 12 after Will Rixon drove 4 last night. And Will's joining me to have a chat. Congratulations, Will. Well done.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it was a good night at the office.
Mate, are you looking at the state premiership? Cam's obviously away enjoying a break at the moment. I think he's over there. He's at the Hambletonian. You've been able to narrow it down to 12. Are you looking at the premiership?
Not really. It's obviously a pretty long year and we've still got a long way to go. And one thing I've never really looked at, just because obviously Cam's been so dominant for a long time, and he's obviously such a great driver and always hard to beat. So not really. I try to just take week by week and keep trying to focus on myself and keep trying to hopefully get the good results. But it's been to be sort of spoken about in the premiership this far out, sort of not something I'm really used to. So to people to be saying it or whatever, it's a pretty cool thing.
Mate, when your dad and mum stable had a double a couple of weeks ago, I reached out to your dad to try and get him on the podcast, and he said he said he was out of action. He just had an operation, and you'd been helping your parents quite a bit looking after some horses. It's obviously working well for the stable because you're getting some good results.
Yeah, well, just pretty lucky that mum and dad have sort of handed me a few above average ones. Obviously gunner reloads we got a pretty good opinion of, and mum and dad have done all the groundwork with her to get her to where she's at now, and sort of just been lucky to keep ticking her over while unfortunately dad's just out of action there for a bit. So it's obviously it's been good that we were able to keep things rolling and make the most of an unfortunate situation for dad. But it has been good so far. So hopefully we can continue on.
You mentioned the filly Gunner Reload. She was one of the 4 winners last night. She looks to have loads of ability. She's only lightly raced. She's had she had now 4 starts and won 3 of them. So she's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, we really like her, Greg. She seems to just show up on race night, which is a great thing to have, I think. And a lot of nice horses do that. Don't really show heaps at home, but when the green light goes, they can really switch into a good racehorse, and she seems to be doing that. And just the way she's been winning, it's been probably the most pleasing. She's pricking her ears and not really concentrating, and all her wins back this time in. So I think if you see her maybe even off a helmet in a nicer race, you might see the best of her. So really pleased with her and looking forward to her future, that's for sure.
She's by Sweet Lou. What are the plans with her?
Yeah, she's Breeders' Challenge, so that will be her short-term plan was, the New South Wales Bred Final, which was last night. So it was pleasing to tick that off. And I'll sit down with mum and dad tonight and just have a look at the program and work out a bit of a plan with her, which probably look to maybe give her an easy week or 2, and then just build her right up and try and have a peaking for the Breeders' Challenge series where it looks as though she's going to be a player in that, we hope. So that's probably the next thing on the radar for her.
What about the other one for the stable was Waterboy Jack, and over the 2,300 metres, you made the decision after a few hundred metres to get around and find the front, and that was the winning move. Yeah,
that was a good win. Mum and Dad sort of love this horse. He's a lovely horse to have around, and he's quite a nice horse to drive as well. So he's a bit of a favourite, and he's not really known to be driven that way, but obviously we lobbed about 5 cents, which is an awkward spot at Menangle over the 2,300, and it's hard to sort of do what I did or come first over, which isn't really ideal for him. So when the speed slackened like that, I decided to take a chance and hopefully get the front, and luckily it paid off, and he was still a pretty strong win.
Just keep kicking around at Menangle on a Saturday night with him?
Yeah, he's still under 80, so we think he's good enough to win up at 80. So it's good to win that Menangle Stakes race, and hopefully he can pick up an 80. So that would be the plan with him.
Just having a look at that double that the stable got going back last month in the New South Wales Bred Finals. Our Goat, Amanda drove, and Jungle Dragon, Amanda drove that one as well. What are the plans with them? Are they also looking at the Breeders' Challenge?
Yeah, they're actually blue eligible, so the heats are on the 24th of this month for them. Give them a bit of an easy week, and they're working up really nice and had a good hit out yesterday and seemed good. So I'll probably trial Our Goat Wednesday, and then he'll race the following Saturday, hopefully, if all goes well. And then Jungle Dragon might even start next week, and look to sort of build him in the Breeders' Blue. He seems to be, I quite like them both, but Jungle Dragon seems to have a bit of upside about him, so pretty happy with them, and hopefully they're fit and healthy going into that Blue Series at the end of the month.
What did you make of Treacherous Gal in the first at Menangle last night? New one to the stable for David Aiken, and did a pretty good job. You looked as though with 150 to go there might be some dangers, but she fought on really well.
Yeah, she's got a lot of ability, I think. She's, David Aiken sort of mentioned to me that he thinks she can be quite good, and for him to say that, she obviously has showed him something because he's had a lot of good horses in his barn. So, yeah, she was pretty casual out in front and sort of didn't really concentrate, but I felt as though when they got to her, she lifted blade, and yeah, I think you'll see a different horse driven coming off a helmet, that's for sure. She's, I think she's going to have a pretty good future here in New South Wales.
You drove Joe Tomo for Anne O'Connor. Good to see Anne get a winner in town, and Joe Tomo was never really in any doubt.
Yeah, he was able to get a nice first half and control the race pretty nice, and I was pretty confident with him the way he won the heat at Wagga in good time. So that was really good to get a nice win to Anne. They're lovely people, and a win like that for the country people was always an exciting thing to be a part of.
Mate, Super Service in the last. It finished 6th for the stable. What did you make of Super Service?
Yeah, look, probably on face value it looks disappointing, but he was 2 weeks without a run, and just probably was a little fresh. He was a bit excited with the 2300 and didn't really settle as I would have liked. And if you're not doing everything right against horses like a Locomotive, it can be hard. So I think he'll be better for the run last night, and he'll race again next week, and hopefully we'll see him just finish off that little bit better. But I think he'll still bounce back. I'm not overly stressed with how he went.
Mate, what you decided? You haven't gone away with Cam. You're having a bit. You're basically concentrating on everything you've got going on at home.
Yeah, we have sort of gone away a fair bit together over the years, but we had a pretty big year last year travelling and that, so I looked to probably stay at home all year and try and have a good crack at home. But I think it's just a good thing for Cam to go over and have a look at himself and have a look at the way they do things over there. And I spoke to him a couple of times, and he said he's really enjoying it. So it's good that he's going to have a look. It'd be a pretty cool experience to be over there on their big race days.
Yeah, for sure and certain. And what about you, mate? Obviously, you're trying your hand now, helping out mum and dad with the training side of things. Is it something we're going to see you slide towards more of as you get older, or are you happy to do, stay where you are as a freelance driver?
Yeah, look, it's not really something that I thought would happen this soon, but obviously things sort of changed, and really happy to give mum and dad a hand. But I'm not really sure. I think my main focus at the moment is driving. That's what I really enjoy, and that's what I, focus on doing. So at the moment, short term, it's definitely, all guns blazing driving and trying to keep things rolling with driving. But down the track, I can see myself maybe training a couple one day. But at the moment, it's just driving.
Well, mate, congratulations with the 4 winners. You're doing a fantastic job, and all the best of luck in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
We get another layer of intrigue into the Eureka with the running of the Bowtide. Last night in Hobart, Fighter Command, the 3-year-old getting through, and looking forward to the Eureka now, which is only just over a month away. Andrew Kelly is the CEO of Harness Racing Australia, and I'm going to have a chat to Andrew about the Eureka and what we can look forward to in the future. Hello, Andrew. Great to have your company.
Yeah, great to be with you, Greg.
3-year-old into the race, Fighter Command being too strong in the bow tide last night?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, as a promoter, you love to see it. Obviously, the way that the barrier draw will unfold, 3-year-olds have will draw a good alley, and from that perspective, having a 3-year-old in the race will add a layer of intrigue as well as great opportunity for the connections of that horse. And what we saw last night at Hobart, is a horse that's on the way up. Very leggy, still got a bit to learn, but smashed the track record last night. So, certainly Greg Sugars' reactions directly afterwards is that, he's not just there to make up the numbers. So, yeah, it's very interesting. So a Tas-bred horse trained in Victoria with connections in WA and racing in Sydney. So got pretty much all bases covered there. And that, again, is goes to show what this race can do to bring everyone together.
Speaking of that, the Eureka, obviously for Australian-bred horses, you have plenty of contacts overseas. Do the rest of the world take note and take interest of what is happening as it is the world's richest harness race?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the French, who are probably the leaders in the space, even though they're all trotting and they don't quite understand or appreciate pacing in the way that North America and Australia and New Zealand do. They sent quite a entourage down here last year to take a look at the first beak, and they were extremely impressed. So I know from whilst they're different gates, particularly the Europeans, taking a keen interest in what's happening here, and that's true across all of Australian racing. There's a lot of wagering on Australian racing in those other countries, and what is also pleasing that our relationship and partnership with Tabcorp will see over 60 countries take the Tab Eureka live this year. So, it's continuing to grow and build, and it's good that there's that commercial relationship as well with those countries, not just the interest, but people are able to take a keen interest and get involved. So, we market to there as well with hype reels and information about trainers and drivers and keep them up to date. So, it's not just something that happens, in New South Wales. It's not just something that happens in Australia. It is something that has global appeal from a fan perspective, even if their horses are able to participate. But nonetheless, we've seen Leap of Fame, go on to bigger and better things after last year's Eureka. Obviously, champion, maybe the likes of which we haven't seen before. And, his deeds, which include the Tab Eureka on display for all to see. Many think he's one of the greatest horses in the world currently. And, all going well, he will be a sire that will be able to conquer parts outside of Australia. So all of these things are important for us.
We spoke earlier about a little bit of tinkering that happened with this year's edition of the Eureka, the race dropping back 100 metres in distance, a little bit more prize money to even everything out. Will there continue to be changes? Will you sit down after the running of the second Eureka and say, look, do we need to make any changes to make it even better for the third running?
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, I also think it's you can be a bit reactionary. So there were a number of things that were raised in the review after last year's initial chapter. We don't expect to get it right from the word go. We did get a lot of things right, but there were some areas that we think we can improve and build upon. The areas that you mentioned were the two that I think made perfect sense to be able to move on straight away. But there's other things that we'll be looking closely at again this year, and see whether or not what we learnt last year is just something that was a growing pain, or whether or not it's something that we do need to fix. But reviewing all of your major events and or decisions is, of course, very important to do as you're constantly trying to improve. And we think that the recipe is strong. but it's making sure that we deliver.
So initially for 3 years, and it was to be run in Sydney. What happens after those 3 years are up?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? There's quite a few things on the go after 3 years. We've got slot holders that come out of contract. We have a naming rights partner that comes out of contract, and we're not sure where the race would be held. So it's important, however, to be able to give a long runway to what comes next, and those decisions will all need to be put to bed before the running of the third chapter. And so from that perspective, the review following this year's event will be a bit more wide-ranging, because it will include all those areas that you mentioned. We hope to have built an event and a brand that's very strong from a commercial perspective, commercial partner perspective. We will be very interested in how the slot holders react. They have within their contracts the opportunity to extend another term, so that will be great to get their feedback as well. And then I suppose the big one that you were keen to know was what happens with the venue. So it's been a significant amount of effort and resources poured into. Well, we haven't had the second event yet, but already a lot of effort put into it, and all signs are great for another great event. So it's going to be an interesting decision, but members of Harness Racing Australia will make that in the fullness of time, and understanding what investment comes with conducting the event, because you can't just put on the race night. As you'd be well aware, the co-hosts in Club Menangle and then also Harness Racing New South Wales have been amazing in their contributions and resourcing of people and funding towards all of the different elements that unfold to make this event what it has already become in such a hurry. And that needs to be taken into account at a time when it is a little difficult in some jurisdictions at the moment. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting decision, but I'm confident that it will continue. Whatever the decision is, it will continue to build on the great brand of the event that we've established.
So effectively, like states will be asked to tender, and then the Harness Racing Australia the votes will then be tallied. Is that how it works? Is it like an Olympic bid? Yeah. Yeah,
it may. It may not need to get to that. Like it's a pretty the way that Harness Racing Australia works. We're in constant conversations with each other, and it's without trying to give too much away. It's not a lot of politics that happens, or politicking in the background, or jealousy. But at the same time, it's important to recognise that the way in which the event is funded does have contributions from all over the country. So that needs to be weighed up as well. So it's, I don't think it's a set and forget necessarily, but I think there are also arguments for finding a home for major events as well, be it AFL Grand Finals or the Australian Open Tennis. You can see the value in being able to invest in infrastructure over long periods of time in order to deliver great events. So hopefully everyone listening can understand that it is a balancing act, and we do recognise how the funding contributions are made, where they come from, and to be able to give as many people as possible the opportunity to be involved and participate. So that's where we'll get to probably about
what about
8 months from now?
About 8 months, yeah. What in terms of the position that it holds in the calendar? Like, is it locked into September? Could that change? I guess it really depends on where all the other major races fall, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. But I think one of the strengths of the date, and please don't read anything into the date might change. But what I would be really keen to see happen, that if there is a date change, that it becomes or maintains the same date for a significant period of time. I think that being able to lock in the first Saturday in September, as an example, is a great way to be able for people to know and to be able to build around really quickly. And whilst it's not happening in the NRL necessarily yet, the AFL have a bye in that first week of the finals, and that normally coincides with that. So there had been talk about the NRL maybe adopting something similar, and if they do, then that would be great. But it just gives that bit of clear air in some states for promoting the event as well. And I think it's worth highlighting that it has become an event that is promoted across states. It's not only sort of the local or domestic New South Wales media that get behind it. It's something that that is getting coverage right across the country, and it's terrific to have Never Ending as the current pre-post favourite from WA. Very proud traditional harness racing state that obviously has a horse of great talent on their books at the moment, and that will bring them close to the event. So, it's great to have so many different storylines as well, as you know.
Mate, just in wrapping up, you must be pretty proud to sit back and see where the race, it's come from a thought bubble to what it's become after only one running.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's actually slot races overall. They've went from sort of controversial to novelty to mainstream very, very quickly. And whilst, I'm the first to acknowledge that there still is controversy to some extent around the Eureka. That's particularly in relation to the funding model. I think most people would say that the event itself is fantastic. There's hopefully people can appreciate and see where we have already landed in terms of the event status, but then also where we are headed on the trajectory that we are. And it's, it is doing the things that we hoped it would do. It's transcending across media platforms. It's has banter almost every day of the week, good, bad, or otherwise. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate how polarising some of the comments and the positions that people take are, but nonetheless they're talking about it, and from a promoter's perspective, that's what you want. So it's all it's a year-long build-up. We started planning, and the discussions started from the day after last year's event, the 3rd of September, and as you say, we're only a month away, and really looking forward to it. But I hope that it will, and it already is for some, I know, but that it will become an event that the whole industry is proud of. It should be their event. There's contributions from across the country and at all levels of the industry towards it. It should be the industry event, and that will give me great satisfaction in time as it continues to grow that way and people embrace it.
Mate, thank you very much for joining me on a Sunday. I do appreciate you giving up some time, and look forward to catching up with you at the Eureka in a month's time.
Thanks for your support, Greg. It's very good, and look forward to seeing you out there. And for those that haven't already, as a ticketed event, it's very important that people do make their decisions early. Grab a ticket, whether it's at www.eureka.com.au or through the Club Menangle website. There's lots of ways that you can get there, but there is also a gold membership on offer as well, which is well worth it. We just don't want anyone to miss out when the sold out sign goes up. So if I can encourage everyone to get behind it that way and make sure that you don't miss out on this year's event, which is going to be unbelievably even the way that the field's unfolding.
So many feature races in New South Wales and at Club Menangle in 2024, Miracle Mile, the Eureka, the Inter-Dominion. But what does the future hold? What is going to happen in time? Will we see the Eureka move on? Will we see the Inter-Dominion move on? I guess the man to speak to is the man who's in charge of the club out there, Bruce Christison, and we'll find out what the club's thoughts are going forward with basically a plethora of feature races at the track this year. Bruce Christison is joining me. Thanks for joining me, Bruce.
No worries, Greg. Great to be here.
Mate, gee, you've got everything this year. It's a huge 2024 for the club.
Yeah, it is for sure, mate. You just run through sort of, I suppose, the various carnivals that we've got there. So, already having run the Miracle Mile Carnival, the new pacing for Pink Carnival in May, and as you say, now sort of really heavily into the last minute plans now for the Eureka on the 7th of September, and then we have the Breeders' Challenge in between, and then of course, as you say, this year into Dominion as well. So it's a really exciting year for the club. It really works nicely with one of our major strategic sort of goals, which is to better utilise feature racing to really promote the sport. So we're seeing this, I suppose, event style offering, which we've been doing now, last year's Eureka, the Miracle Miles, Harness Racing New South Wales with the Carnival of Cups, and it's really about trying to use these major race events to attract our passionate harness racing fans, but also to attract new fans, and that's where the real attraction is for the club.
So the Eureka, we're about to see the second running in a 3-year block. What would the club like to see happen? Would the club like the Eureka to remain in Sydney?
Yeah, well, from the club's perspective, certainly we would like to conduct all the major racing at our venue, and without being selfish, I mean, we would love to see whether it be Eurekas, whether it be Inter Dominions, and we also accept there needs to be a sharing of that product around the country. But in the case of the Eureka, ultimately, I suppose that decision really rests with Harness Racing Australia, as they own that brand. We were very privileged and proud to have been for them to have approached us and offered to conduct the first 3 years of it. And we certainly feel we got that new event off to an amazing start last year with the success we had, and we're certainly really confident that we'll back that up again this year with another fantastic night, both of racing and also of entertainment for people. But ultimately, that decision really rests with Harness Racing Australia, and we're waiting to see what that process looks like. We haven't had any further instruction on whether there's going to be a tender process or how that's going to work. Harness Racing New South Wales are our partner in that from the New South Wales perspective, so that will also be a key part is the discussions and the funding arrangements around it as well. I mean, it is a big money series in terms of both what's being offered through the slot race side of things with the prize money, but of course also from the promotion of the event. And once again, I know Harness Racing Australia really sees this as an opportunity to give us greater relevance and credibility, I suppose, on a wider stage. And I know certainly in the local area, I've attended a number of events just in the last few weeks. One only on Friday night, actually at Parramatta, with the Premier speaking at that. And so many people speaking to me about the Eureka, both the success of last year, but also of this year coming up. And we're talking that these are people who have no sort of interest, I suppose, in background with harness racing, but are talking about it as a significant event for the area. So I certainly think we're having success there. So we would love, from the club's perspective, to see it remain. But as I say, it's probably ultimately a decision that rests outside of our powers, though.
When you put on a Miracle Mile, obviously, you know, it's your race and all the costs that come with it. What, in terms of a Eureka, like, are you guys expected to you know, to pay the bill for putting on the show on the night? Is that the way it works for people who are sort of listening in and don't understand the process?
The bulk of the funding for the actual event itself is coming from Harness Racing Australia and Harness Racing New South Wales. So we're certainly using our resources, obviously, our venue, our people. The promotion of the event is very, very heavily run by the club and our marketing team. We have a fantastic, fairly recent addition to that marketing team with Amy Harrison, who came to us from the ATC, with 10 years at the ATC and experience at places like the Roosters NRL, etc. And she brings a wealth of experience in sports marketing, and she's been fantastic for us, and she's got a really good team working with her. So we're utilising that resource. And, of course, as I say, our venue. But the majority of the money coming, say, for example, from the advertising the entertainment, like a Jess Malboy this year or Birds of Tokyo last year. The majority of that funding for this event is coming from Harness Racing Australia and Harness Racing New South Wales.
What about the Inter-Dominion? What's the future? You know, does the club have to speak with Harness Racing New South Wales if they want to keep the Inter-Dominion and work together to keep it, or like what's the future there?
Yeah, with the Inter-Dominion, again, a really interesting one in terms of the trying to sustain that series, and there's been, of course, a lot of different models in recent times as to how that's tried to be done to keep that tradition going. And we went through the period there where with the 3 consecutive years run, we ran there at Menangle for 3 consecutive years, then over, of course, in Gloucester Park for 3 consecutive, and then entered the relationship initially with Harness Racing Victoria and Harness Racing New Zealand to conduct it for 9 years, shared between the 3 venues. Harness Racing New Zealand exited that agreement, and Queensland came into it. So that we're coming towards the end of the second of those 3-year terms with one more block of 3 years to run under that agreement. There is some talk that last 3 years may change as to how that looks, and that would be a discussion for the 3 joint venture partners along with Harness Racing Australia, if that was to be the case. The problem with the Inter-Dominion is that whilst, of course, everyone loves the tradition of the series, and that's why us as a club and Harness Racing New South Wales have been heavily involved for this past probably 10 to 15 years is trying to keep that tradition alive. But the problem comes in where no one's been able to generate a profit from an Inter-Dominion for, well, certainly as long as I've been involved with the administration of the sport. And the fact is you're paying, even with the $500,000 final, you're paying an extra $1 million in prize money to what you would normally pay. And there's no hope of recouping that money, particularly in the current climate where sponsorship dollars are so difficult to come by. So it's the funding of that series that's really problematic. So personally, and this isn't a club position, but I mean personally, I think the only way the Inter-Dominion can survive is for us to come up with a better way to fund that series. And I've been a fan forever of a starters fee across the board, being the way to generate that pool of funds. That's my, as I say, that's my personal opinion on that. And I think it's the only way one you can, if you are generating that pool of funds, to share the series around. Because let's face it, the smaller jurisdictions, that's why they exited the original Inter-Dominion rotation, was because that was just completely unrealistic for them to fund the series or the portion of money that's required to fund the series from the host jurisdiction. So it's I think for the Inter-Dominion to survive, and let's face it, anybody who's been involved with the sport for any length of time wants that to be the case. But I think as an administration body across the country, we're going to have to come up with a better system to fund it if it's to survive, I think, beyond the current agreement.
What about in the current financial climate? How is it for the club? Obviously, New South Wales is in one of the better positions, and especially with a rich principal club like Menangle because of the sale of Harold Park. But how tough is it to ensure that there's going to be money for future generations?
Oh, it's extremely tough. To be honest, I think that the biggest challenge for New South Wales, without doubt, and we've been having these discussions for a long period of time with Harness Racing New South Wales, is to come up with a more sustainable funding model. And at the moment, the simple fact is, everyone talks of the funds that sit there as a result of the sale of Harold Park, but the model is based upon those funds being invested and the earnings of those funds being used to go towards prize money. Well, the simple fact is, at the moment, that's not that. Some of that money is going towards prize money, but the majority of those funds are going towards just the everyday expenses, because our funding hasn't changed as a club. The funding that we're getting through from wagering revenue hasn't changed now for 5 years. Well, I think anybody who's whether they're in business or whether they're just looking at their own home finances would know how much the cost of living has gone up in 5 years. And as I say, from a club's perspective, we have not had one extra cent in revenue in 5 years. So all those additional expenses, whether that be things to do with the wages of the club, whether it be with the energy costs, which of course have absolutely skyrocketed, what you do on the track to make the track the way it is, and how reliable that track is to race week in, week out, twice every week, train on it every day, and have those sorts of benefits that we have as an industry. Those then to conduct, of course, your major events that we're talking about here today, like your Eureka Miles and your Eurekas and Interdominions. If you're going to have that sort of facility, you have to pay for it. And so I think, whilst as you rightly say, Greg, that New South Wales is in a better position than most other jurisdictions, the problem is, if we're to sustain it, as you say, for future generations, then we need to come up with a better funding mechanism now, because what we're going to start doing is draining those funds, and it becomes a very quick cycle. And anybody who understands compounding interest, we're going to have the reverse problem. I mean, rather than accumulating funds with compounding interest, we're actually going to be losing them, because very quickly, as we start to eat into the principle, you go backwards very quickly, and the board won't allow that to happen. The board won't allow that principle to be eaten into. So, so as I say, whilst on the face of it, that looks great with that money sort of sitting in the bank. If we can't come up with a sustainable year-on-year funding model, that money will be eroded for the future generations, and we're in the situation we're in because of decisions made by people in the past. And I, for one, would certainly like to be making sure that the decisions we're making today are being looked back on in 20, 30, 50 years' time with appreciation that we made the right decisions and didn't put the sport in a position where it can't survive. Now, I also accept that there's no point putting money aside. You've got to protect the industry today as well. So you need to find the right balance. We need to find a balance that makes the industry sustainable for those that are relying upon it for their day-to-day living, but also protect it and make it sustainable for the future.
Very interesting chat. It sounds like we're at a situation with the industry that, we're at a fork in the road, and the right decision's got to be made to ensure the sustainability of it.
Yeah, and this is where you know better than anyone, Greg, about the passion that people within this industry have for the sport. You've got people who can make a living out of it, and you've got people who are in it because they just have the passion through the generations for this sport. But we need to, as you say, make the right decisions today to protect the people that are in the sport today, but also to make it a viable sport to try and bring people into. As I said, the club's interest in running these major race events is to widen the audience, because there's no way we can survive as a sport with the current audience that we have. And of course, we're having these discussions at a time where competition for entertainment dollar is at a higher level than it's ever been before. I mean, like you look at the time at the moment, like with the Olympics, and I for one love, I'm a sports tragic for basically any sport, especially any sport that Australia's in. So a time like now with the Olympics on is a dream for me, and we all become canoe experts and windsurfing experts and what are BMX racing experts. I mean, those events yesterday morning were just things that I just love to see. But what it shows is how much competition's out there. But you also see all these sports when they're in the Olympics, that it's the only opportunity that actually get to be seen. So for us with harness racing, we're in a similar boat. We're not in that mainstream conversation when people are talking about entertainment, but we know when people come to the racing, they love it. The night markets, for example, has been a huge success for us, running that on the second Saturday of each month. And we get, on a quiet market night, a couple of thousand people, up to 5,000 or 6,000 people come through the place on those nights. And so many of them are sitting out there watching the racing and having a great time. We know we're getting flow-on business from that, with people coming into the restaurant on other weeks and booking Christmas parties and birthday parties and things. So we know when people come, they enjoy themselves. People tell us what a great time they have. But we've got to put ourselves on their radar for a place that they come to. And being in a growth area like we are, we have that ability to do that. But that's great for us at Menangle, where we are in such a we know in 10 years' time around us we're going to have another 10,000 people around us, which is fantastic for us right there. But as a sport across the country, we need to increase our relevance, our credibility, and to do that is the only way we can survive for the future. I mean, we can't rely on our passionate few that love our sport. That will help us today, but it's not. Unfortunately, it's not going to take us forward for the future. We need to bring more people into the sport. We need to make it a realistic and a viable sport for people to survive in. So, and the only way to do that is to come up with a sustainable funding model that's making sure every section of the industry. I mean, I'm a great believer. I mean, it's wonderful to have incentives and things for breeding, etc. But again, personally, I'm a great believer that we need to make sure that prize money is strong, because ultimately that's what drives any market, is people wanting to buy horses. Now, the only way people want to buy horses is to make sure that there is a market for people to buy. I mean, if someone's breeding a horse, they need people to be buying at the higher end and then flying all the way down. So we've got, and prize money is the key to that. So, and of course, like being in opposition in politics, it's easy to identify all the issues, but the challenge is coming up with the right answers.
It's a really interesting chat, and it's great to have you on the podcast this morning. I thank you for giving up some of your Sunday morning. Really looking forward to what's coming up at Menangle in the coming months. It's going to be a very exciting finish to 2024. Mate, thank you for joining me. Thank you for having a chat about this, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks again, Greg. And yeah, we're really excited. I mean, of course, 7th of September, Saturday night, the Eureka is the next big one. Should be an absolutely amazing night of racing and entertainment. Thanks again, mate.
It is time for the Menangle Express. We start with race 1. The favourite was Treacherous Gal at 175, and there was speed early from Vinky B and Kaitoa in the early stages, with Vinky B crossing down. Treacherous Gal progressed forward and ended up finding the front, but it did take more than 400 metres to get there. After that, it was single file. So Treacherous Gal, Vinky B, Kaitoa, Cash and Bling, I'm Rockin' It, Colonia Courage, Lacey's Lad, Pops Boy, Mick Danger and American Hammer. First quarter 27. When they got to the 1,000, Mick Danger came away from the inside. American Hammer came off behind it, and as they moved forward, I'm Rockin' It and Colonia Courage came off at first and second over respectively. 30 seconds the second quarter, big breather for the leader, no moves around the side, 28-1, and then it was a dash up the straight. Colonia Courage came out of the 1-1 and loomed. Vinky B was looking for a run to the inside. Treacherous Gal looked to be in some trouble at the 150, but fought them off late. 26-9 for a 152 mile. Kaitoa and Cash and Bling had no room to move late. Both looked to be travelling well. Might pay to follow them, but keep in mind both had good draws and found their positions without doing any work. Race number 2, Doug's Platter, was the $2.10 favourite, and there was speed from Little Bliss early and one for the roadie, but Little Bliss held and made enough room for one for the roadie to drop in behind it. Craftsman's Charlie and Doug's Platter stayed off the fence and progressed forward, and first Craftsman's Charlie got the front before it released Doug's Platter. So into single file, Doug's Platter, Craftsman's Charlie, Little Bliss, one for the roadie, Royal Gamble, Dance and Deliver, Cassius Deck, Dad and Dave, Unfazed, High Voltage, 48.5 the lead time. Unfazed came off the inside at the bell to try and get something to come out and give it cover. 31-1, slow first quarter, but the running line did appear as Royal Gamble came off the marker pegs, giving Unfazed cover. Then it was High Voltage, Dad and Dave and Cassius Deck. 29-9 second quarter, so big breather for the leader. Royal Gamble was in trouble just after the cages. That forced Unfazed to go earlier than it wanted. 27-8 round the side. Doug's Platter off for the prize. Craftsman's Charlie came to the outside. Little Bliss worked into clear air, and Unfazed was still whacking away. Doug's Platter found late to hold off Craftsman's Charlie. 26-7 up the straight. 154.8 the mile. Craftsman's Charlie second. Little Bliss third. So pegs 1, 2, 3. Unfazed had to start the running line and then forced to come out before it wanted. Not a bad run under the circumstances. Doug's Platter puts its name back into contention for a Eureka spot, but might miss. Race 3 was the Kevin Newman free-for-all. The favour was Max Delight at $2.80. Speed early from Pete Said So, but it looks for cover every week. So again, Amanda Turnbull and Max Delight went forward, ended up finding the front. They did put some speed on early and got a big lead, the first two, on the rest of the field. They eventually went into single file. Max Delight, Pete Said So, Brooklyn Bridge, Total Diva, Miss the Truth, Our Money Rocks, About Time, Where You Been Boppin', Jillaby Nitro, and J.O.K. The lead time was 48.5. J.O.K. came off the inside to try and get some cover, 30.6 first quarter. J.O.K. slid forward, and it forced Our Money Rocks, About Time, and Where You Been Boppin' off the pegs. But in the process, they actually got J.O.K. out 3 wide, so it had to ease to get back into the running line. 29.9 second quarter. Speed went on. Our Money Rocks and Pete Said So both under pressure prior to the turn. 27.6 around the side. Where You Been Boppin' was out 4 and 5 wide on the turn. The leader kicked. Pete Said So came off the inside to have a crack. Total Diva stuck to the inside. No real concerns for Max Delight up the straight. Never in doubt. Clock told the story. 26.6 home. Nothing could make ground from the tail. Pete Said So second again. Total Diva, who put the writing on the wall recently, ran a cracker for third after sitting 4 pegs. Mile rate 154.2. Race number 4, the Waratah final. Fave here was Joe Tomo at $2. It was the only one that showed speed. It was able to find the front pretty easily. Marker pegs, Joe Tomo, Meraki, Mr. Manager, Sally Big Time, Forever Yin. Out 3 wide was Peter Forsberg, but it progressed forward to be first over by the 1100. Behind it, Stars Rain, Rock Fisherman, and Popstar Romar. Cut the Glass was behind it. 28 seconds first quarter, then a slow 30 seconds, so no excuses for the leader. Stars Rain was in trouble at the cages. It was struggling to hold its position, so that stalled the running line. That allowed Mr. Manager the chance to come off the pegs and into the running line. Joe Tomo was under pressure prior to the turn, but was still travelling strongly. 28.1 around the side, then it was a dash up the straight. Joe Tomo rolled off. Meraki came around it rather than sticking to the inside to try and chase it. Mr. Manager was out deep. Sally Big Time stuck to the pegs. Nothing from the tail. Joe Tomo too good. 27.2 home. Pegs dominated again. First 4 all raced on the pegs. 153.3 mile. Nothing too much to be said about those chasing in that one. Race number 5, fave here, Maria Alagonda. She was the first fave to bite the dust all night at $1.80. Delightful Star galloped out the back. Savion showed good speed from the middle, but always looks for cover. Carrera Sunset began well, but Maria Alagonda protected the good draw, and once Savion crossed, went forward to get the front. So pegs, it was Maria Alagonda, Savion, Cracker Brie, Lenny's Angel, and Heavenly Bell. Running line, Carrera Sunset, Dying Art, Winona Ryder, Twilight Heaven. 27.5 first quarter. They backed it off to 29.9. In saying that, Carrera Sunset was giving Maria Alagonda no peace in front, eyeballed it. Speed went on in the third quarter. Carrera Sunset got up and headed Maria Alagonda approaching the turn. 28.5 around the side. Dying Art popped out at the top of the straight. Winona Ryder came wider. Savion had to ease to try and get into the clear. Maria Alagonda was gone soon after straightening. Winona Ryder rolled to the front. Savion got to the outside, started to charge, but ran out of time. Just missed. 27.4 home. Winona Ryder has been going well, ultra consistent. Savion will win again soon too. Maria Alagonda, look, maybe she isn't a leader, because you'd think on her trials she'd run 153.3 every day of the week. Either that or something is wrong. Be interesting to see where she goes next. Race 6, Dangerous Threats, heavily supported into $1.90. It showed speed with Rock You in the early stages, crossed the lead. Rock You couldn't get in behind the leader, but dropped 3 pegs. So the marker line was Dangerous Threats, Zenaloo, Rock You, Nirvana Prince, Rowdy Christian, Glitter Ain't Gold. The running line was Mr. 4000 and Thalassophobia. 26.5 the first quarter. They backed it off to 29.4 second quarter, and then Morris put his foot down. 27.7 around the side, and that stopped Mr. 4000, who was gone. Rock You came to the outside, but Dangerous Threats was off for the prize. Glitter Ain't Gold got caught up on the turn and had nowhere to go. It had to wait until the straight to get to the outside, but it was all over. Huge win, Dangerous Threats. 26.8 up the straight, under the urging of the driver. They went 150.4. Really good effort. Rock You second, but the runner Glitter Ain't Gold was the best run of the beaten horses. Flooded home from the tail to get third, but it was beaten 35 metres. Race number 7, Gunner Reload, $1.30 favourite. Speed early from Double at Harry until it went up in the air, checked upstream, got down pretty quickly. Double at Harry, and Gunner Reload pushed through to find the lead, but Double at Harry came hard, got the front. As soon as that happened, Gunner Reload was off for the retake, so pegs Gunner Reload, Double It Harry, Ultimate Diva, Looking Good Margie, and I Can Do Better. Running Line, Casbar, Downward Dog, Upstream. 27.8 and 30.6. They were the first two quarters. No moves. 28.7 around the side. Gonna Reload was off for the prize. Double It Harry looked to be battling, but fought on well. And the same could be said for Casbar, who raced outside them the whole trip. Gonna Reload, nice filly, won comfortably. 27.2 up the straight, mile rate of 154.3. Casbar, now it can be winning next time. Good effort, it did work. Looking Good Margie got into the clear, turning for home. Hit the line okay for fifth. Thought she might pick off a few in the straight when she got into the clear. Downward Dog finished fourth, looked to have every chance. Race 8, fave here, Waterboy Jack at $2.25. Speed early from Kalara Samurai early, and it crossed, but it looks for cover. So Power Up came forward and got it. They went into single file, so it was Power Up, Kalara Samurai, Jillaby Adore, Sheffield Sparky, Waterboy Jack, Sir Simon, Ideal Marquess, Merrywood Paul, Merrywood Tony, and McCrikey. Waterboy Jack came off the pegs, really smart drive, Will Rixon, turning into the straight the first time and went and took the lead. And the lead time was slow, 50.9. And then they went a first quarter of 29. At the 1,050, Sir Simon started the running line. So Ideal Marquess, Merrywood Paul, Merrywood Tony, they jumped off the pegs as well. 30.2 second quarter, it set it up for the front runners. Sir Simon was gone at the cages, and that stalled the running line. And that forced Ideal Marquess out earlier than expected. 28.1 around the side. Waterboy Jack rolled off the inside. Power Up was flat but was sticking on well. Ideal Marquess was making ground slowly. Kalara Samurai stuck to the inside. Sheffield Sparky eased all the way from the inside to the outside to get a crack at them. Waterboy Jack was flat but held on. 28 seconds up the straight, 156.3 the mile. 4 winners for Will Rixon. Power Up tried hard. Ideal Marquess was good, having to take off early. And Sheffield Sparky flooded home off a good run for fourth. Race number 9, fave was the Locomotive at $2.60. Standing start trot when they said go. Everything stepped away okay. Sunny G then went roughly for a few strides but kept trotting. Super Service began well, found the front from Leaf Stride, She's a Pleasure, Monarch Stride, It's Fergie Time, Speedy Lover, Toro Stride and Sunny G. The Locomotive was the only horse off the pegs and it steamed around to work to the front at the judge with 1 lap to go. So the lead time was 53.1, followed by 29.7 for the first quarter. At the 1,000, Sunny G started the running line with Toro Stride jumping onto its back with Speedy Lover also coming off the pegs. 31.4 the second quarter, basically sealed the deal for those back in the field. Monarch Stride galloped on the home turn, 28.1 round the side, and that took the sting out of most of them, but the Locomotive pulled away from the field. Toro Stride, Speedy Lover, they fanned in the straight. Leaf Stride was trying to squeeze through around Super Service and did get there, but went rough for 1 stride, but it was all in vain. The Locomotive saluted in the last for Brad Hewitt. Super Service got the right run, but Will said, you heard from Will earlier in the podcast, it might pay to forgive that horse due to the time it's had between runs. 28.3 up the straight, 158.3 mile rate. Think they might have some fun with the Locomotive. He's only 4, and he's been a mobile start horse for the majority of his career, so a win from the stand. Best win of the night, well, favourite punters would be cheering. Maria Alagonda was the only one who went down. 8 of 9 favourites won. Best win, Dangerous Threats, driven right out but recorded a very slick time on a cold night. So Dangerous Threats was the best win of the night. Best beaten effort of the night. I thought Casbar was pretty brave in the second. Still a maiden, but I don't think it'll be a maiden for much longer. It'll be winning pretty soon. So that was Casbar. And best drive of the night, almost led or got crossed and then came out for a retake. So I think I might go with Sophia Arvidsson here with Winona Ryder. She drove it a treat. She found the right helmet to follow. She hit the go button at the right time and was able to hold off Savion late. So drive of the night goes to Sophia Arvidsson.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Winning. Hey, that's pretty good.
Winner!
That was legitness.
To that I say, all right. Wow, winning.
Bam! Just like that. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. A winner! Just like that.
As tipped on the podcast last week, Mr T was off saving the world, so couldn't get me any tips. But the good news is we've located Mr T. He sent through 2 selections from his special compound in a classified area somewhere in the world. Mr T's in front. He's on minus $54. I'm minus $56. I missed twice last week, so this could be a chance for Mr T to level the series as we move into the final month of this round of our tipping challenge. I won the first series, so I lead 1-0. And this is round 2. Mr T's 2 tips this week. Race 1, number 9, Bathurst, Wednesday. Know the score for Matt Rue and Amanda Turnbull. Narrow winner last time out, did win 3 starts back, so the gelding is in good form. Mr T thinks it can go back-to-back despite the awkward draw. So that's race 1, number 9, Know the score. Race 3, number 1, Mr T's love affair with Matt Rue continues in the 3rd. He's tipping Boulevard of Dreams. The filly's back from her trip to Melton where she ran 4th in the APG Vic Gold Bullion final back in May. This will be a lot easier, and it's come up with a good draw. So that's race 3, number 1, Boulevard of Dreams. My 2, Menangle Tuesday. Race 3, number 10, Always Sam for Paul and Cam Fitzpatrick. Only lightly raced, got things wrong last start, ran 5th. Thought its run 2 starts ago was good, and there's not a lot of depth in this, so good chance for Always Sam to open up its winning account. Race 3, number 10, and race 8, number 4, Red Reactor. Might go each way, 5 each way here. Numerically, form isn't strong enough for this race, but the last few runs haven't been bad, and it'll be driven for luck. So it needs a few things to go its way, but if it lobs into the right spot and gets the gaps at the right time, it's actually going well enough to be right in the finish here. So race 8, number 4, Red Reactor. That just about wraps up another Sunday session. Thanks to Will Rixon for coming on the podcast and having a chat about last night. And it was good to catch up with both Andrew Kelly and Bruce Christison to have a chat about the future of the feature races here in New South Wales. As I said earlier, I'll try and catch up with Peter Buckman, the boss of Harness Racing New South Wales, next week to follow up those two today and get the perspective of the governing body in the state. New South Wales definitely flying the flag for harness racing in Australia currently, and New South Wales is the place to be. Thanks for your company this week. I'll look forward to joining you again next week for the Sunday session, but it's bye for now.